popping, everybody? My name is Aiden, and welcome back to the Original Fashion Tarot channel. Boy, have I got a special one for you guys today. Now, you may recall in one of my previous videos that I gave you guys a small recap on the Titan War. The war between the gods and Titans, and how the gods overthrew their foreign masters, the Titans, and became the starters, the igniters, you could say, of the Fifth Age, the Silver Age. But this is not that tale. Today is the tale of what came after the Titans. You see, Gaia was a slow goddess to win. She is the primordial Earth. She is Mother Earth herself. And after the Titans were overthrown in the Titans' revolt, again, the gods revolting against the Titans, Gaia became enraged. She had seen her children, the Titans, die. She had seen many monsters of hers die, and she had had enough. And so, she decided to remarry to Tartarus, the spirit of the pit itself, the pit of the underworld, the place of eternal damnation where all the fallen Titans, including Lord Kronos, at that point, slept, disassembled, chopped up into little bits and tossed into the pits, not to be reformed thousands and thousands of years. And so, Gaia, though she could not take physical form in the real world yet, because she was, at the time, still quite asleep, she decided to marry the spirit of the pit and give birth to 12 new children. These children would be the anti-Olympus. Each giant had their own rival in Olympus. One giant was the rival of Zeus, another Poseidon, another Hades. You get the gist here. And she decided that it was time for her children to retake back what had rightfully once been theirs. And so the first strike landed when the anti-Zeus kidnapped Zeus's wife, Hera. And I know that sounds impossible. You think to yourself, how could an Olympian god be kidnapped? It's a bit of a complicated process, but suffice it to say, Hera was captured, and this was just the first cannon shot of what would become a very, very long and brutal war. A war that to this day has not many stories told of it, because it is a shameful tale in the eyes of the gods. It is a tale that they do not like retelling, because it makes them feel ashamed that they needed to call upon mortal help. Let's get started, shall we? Now, Hera had been captured, and of course he was eventually freed. But the gods, of course, seeing that the giants were rising up and that Gaia was beginning to waken, marched to war. They thought, no problem, piece of cake, we can do this. It's taken on plenty worse guys than these before. Sure, they're our height, they're our strength, but, they're just our height and our strength. We can overcome them. We've overcome much worse than before. We've overcome our masters and fathers and mothers, the Titans. So they thought. And so, Hades, Demeter, Ares, Zeus, Artemis, Apollo, Hephaestus, Poseidon, Dionysus, Athena, even Aphrodite and Hermes marched to war against their anti-Olympian forms. And with each battle, they began realizing, very quickly, mind you, that the giants were dying. Or at least, they weren't staying dead for very long. You see, Gaia was a very devious creator of her children. She had made these giants of hers to be, in a way, immortal. In a way, immortal. Because she intended, one way or another, to bring shame to the gods. Would they be too prideful to admit they needed help? Or would they back down and ask for help? Because the giants could not die to godly weapons alone. If you tried to kill a giant with just a godly weapon, it's going to come right back. The Olympians quickly realized this, and they began brainstorming to themselves. What could kill the giants? What could kill these anti-Olympians? And then, one battle, a demigod, I'm not sure who, because this is a very vague tale, did join the battle against the giant, because they saw the giant and they were like, oh, Jesus, that's not good, I gotta help this god. And so they leapt into action. They hit the giant, and to that Olympian's amazement, the giant stayed dead. And so it clicked with each and every one of the gods. In order to win the war against Gaia's second coming of children, in order for them to rescue Hera, save Olympus, and make sure Gaia was unable to awaken again, they would have to ask for help from their demigod children. And I'm not kidding about this. The only way for them to kill their giant counterparts was for both the gods and their mortal children, the demigods, to strike as one. And so, after much debate and many battles, swallowing their pride, the Olympians did ask for help. But they knew they couldn't just accept any help. Oh, no. These had to be the strongest heroes out there. They had to recruit only the best of the best to join them in their war against the Titans. And they did not do so lightly. Bear this in mind. The gods are very, very prideful. They look down on their demigod children with pride, but they look down on them. They feel that they're not supposed to look up to them. They feel they are supposed to look down on them because they are beneath them. They are only mortal. But that's the thing. They needed the demigods to win the war. And so, the gods began recruiting. They started, of course, with one of the strongest heroes of all time, Hercules. Who would have thought, right? Hercules has slain just about every monster in the Greek mythos that you can imagine. And of course, he was one of the fighters in the Giant War. He slayed many giants, I believe, alongside the gods. And here's the thing. The gods didn't just take on their counterparts alone some of the times. Oh no. Some of the giants, it actually took 2 gods and at least 1 demigod to take down. Ares could not withstand his counterpart. For all his supposed power as the god of war, Ares is actually quite weak in terms of godly strength. He may be the god of war, but he is not the god of strength. That belongs to Hercules. So Ares got into a bit of a bind one of these times during one of his toughest battles against his counterparts, and reluctantly, he called upon Dionysus, right here, the god of wine, to aid him. Now, you may believe that Dionysus is just a weak little guy. He's like, he's the god of wine. What could possibly happen to make Dionysus, a god of alcohol, really dangerous? You think to yourself, well, let me ask you this. Is he the god of wine? Or is he the god of what wine is made from? Grapevines. He has a unique ability. He can make grapevines grow at a truly astonishing rate. Even Demeter is jealous of this guy. And he's also the god of insanity. He can play mind games even with the giants. And so he came to Ares' aid, with much bragging, of course. He is the god of wine. He can't help but brag about having to help Ares. And along with one of these demigods, or possibly some other one, he did manage to slay Ares' counterpart in the giant department. Now, you may be wondering, did Gaia, Mother Earth, awaken in this battle? Did she eventually succeed in her plot and manage to rouse her giant children to resurrect her from her long slumber? Because she had slumbered since long before the first Titan War. She'd been like, oh, let's take a nap for a few decades or centuries or whatever. She starts waking up and he's like, oh my god, what happened? She came close. Do not get me wrong. She came very, very close to awakening. But unfortunately, the blood of Olympus was not spilled on the ancient stones during that war. She found herself unable to awaken. And so, she fell back into her long slumber, very regretfully, for thousands of more years. Now you may be wondering, Aiden, were there any giants who actually sided with the gods during this war? Were there any giants who, followed in their Titan brothers and sisters' footsteps and rebelled against the gods? Now, here's the thing. Hold on a minute. I think it was actually the anti-Dionysus that Ares had to come help, with. Or Dionysus had that help with. I think it might have been the other way around, because the anti-Ares was a peaceful giant. But no, yes, there were two giants. One was the anti-Ares, who was peaceful and just didn't want anything to do with the war. And the other was the anti-Artemis. Now, there's a little curious story about the anti-Artemis. His name was Orion. Yes, as in the constellation Orion. He's still up there in that constellation, shooting his bow. Now, Orion, despite being the anti-Artemis, had a rebellious streak, much like Artemis herself. And so, in a stunning twist of events, Orion, the anti-Artemis, asked to join the Hunters of Artemis. Now, bear in mind, this is a very rare event. Artemis, on very rare occasions, does allow men who she deems worthy to join the Hunters. Orion was one of those very rare and special men. And Orion was someone that she did eventually end up falling for. And it was a tentative situation. It was touch and go for a while, because keep in mind, Artemis to this day is still one of the virgin goddesses. She was treading lightly with this one. But unfortunately, Apollo, Artemis's twin brother, grew jealous of Orion. And so tricked Orion into hunting too much, into a craze of hunting. By the time Artemis found him, he had been basically slain by the monsters. Not even monsters, the natural wildlife that he had sworn to protect unless otherwise necessary. And Artemis wept. But her maidenhood remained intact. And that was one of the last casualties of the Titan War. Not the Titan War, the Giant War. Sorry, that was one of the last casualties of the Giant War. It was a brutal, brutal war. But in the end, the gods did succeed in lulling Gaia, Mother Earth, back into her long slumber. This is not a story the gods are proud of. I'll have to tell you guys that much. Achilles, Hercules, Jason, you name it, the heroes were there. This is not a story the gods like to tell. And on that not so cheerful note, thank you all so very much for watching and for listening to my retelling of this story, because it's not a very well-known one, I'm afraid. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss a single one of my videos. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, folks. We're getting there. We are very much so getting there. Thank you all for watching and have an amazing rest of your day. Peace.